within LGBT activism, what do you think are the issues today that are worth talking about?
From a legal perspective or from kind of a social perspective?
Just from a social perspective, because I am just thinking like, where we were at 20 years ago, we've definitely come a long way. And I'm thinking like, do we need LGBT activism today?
The answer is absolutely yes. We still need the activism because what we've seen, and it seems like the queer movement's kind of taking its foot off of the gas, that like we have gay marriage and it's kind of solidified. And now we're seeing like, oh, maybe it wasn't solidified as we once thought. And I think especially when we look at internet and especially political discourse, that these things like, oh, we have gay marriage and like conservatives, they're okay with it. And like we might disagree on some things. We're like, oh, shit, as the internet's being radicalized, like that's up for grabs now. So I think one is absolutely enshrining gay marriage, especially in American context. Like the Supreme Court has already overturned Roe, that the chances of, with a few more appointees, the idea of Obergefell being overturned is not crazy. And then the idea of not every state respecting that is also something there that is also not out of the possibility when we look at especially American politicians. So one is like enshrining gay marriage, the legal protections, the legal institution of marriage, absolutely is something that we need to talk about. From a social perspective, I think once again, and this is all kind of from my perspective in America, having talked to both sides of the aisle, is that there's a lot of discussion around masculinity, around strength, around gender identity. And so much of, I think, especially in religion, is that there's this idea of what it means to be a man. And to be a man means to be able to be strong, means to be capable of hurting other people, but we dial it back. That there's always this sort of violence, and that masculinity comes with a particular set of dressing, a particular set of sounding, a particular set of acting, a particular set of attributes and aesthetic. And I think now there is less like if you come out publicly, you're going to be beaten in the back alley, which still happens in this country. But there's this, you'll never be a man, which means you'll never be a good Christian, which means you'll never be a good business leader, which means you'll never be a good father, which means you'll never be okay unless you meet this traditional view of masculinity. And that if you're not masculine in a certain context, and I say this as somebody who presents quite masculine, that you will never be enough and you will always be shamed or not part of male circles because masculinity is integral to people's identity. And dare I use the term like toxic masculinity, I think especially in American and within my generation, like 5 years older, they kind of have that gender debate. In my generation and younger, especially in online discourse, there is this huge idea of masculinity is our gold standard for how we need to present and says so much about you as a person. So I think from a social perspective, being okay with people are complex. People have a lot of different strengths. They have a lot of different weaknesses. They have a lot of different values, and how somebody presents does not dictate who they are as a person. I think is a conversation that my generation and younger needs to be having.